All right, folks, back again. I've been doing a little research because as we get to K50, or as the K50 was released, the buffs again jumped real high and keeps that we're good defensively, just are not anymore. And the game's buffering, of course. So I went through some of the sub-generals and put down what I have. And some of these are fairly elite, but I don't really have the ability to red star, and I think that's where a lot of people are, is I don't have the ability to red star these to get the most out of them. So I'm doing a video today on just base generals, sub-generals, the special skill and whatever debuffs do apply, just to see like what the numbers are on a base. So before I get into that, I'm going to go over some of these and just go with what the full red star is on these. One thing that's become real clear to me is that Nordic, when he came out, was one of the best sub-generals. But in today's game, it just doesn't hold true. The HP debuff is pretty fair, but he's not really heavy in any number. A lot of people oohed and awed on his Archer debuff back in the day. But when you go through it now, he just doesn't hold water compared to the others. So two generals that I do want to switch for more of a even debuff against Siege and Archer is going to be Nordic. I want to replace him. And let me just start this Viking real quick. So I'm gonna do a series of short videos on defending and areas that are going to help you in your defense. So one general I am going to cut is Nordic, and I think I'm probably going to cut Ziska. At the time he was great, but right now his siege HP just doesn't hold water compared to what you really, really need. And some of these that I go over, a lot of people are going to be surprised with what I have to say. But it is what it is. And it's going to be a relevant assessment. So here's the thing with these sub-generals, let me do it like this. With these sub-generals, you have to find the best combo for what you're trying to debuff. And for these big keeps, I focus on Archer and Siege, and my train of thought is the longer your Siege can survive, and the longer your Siege and Archer, and really Cav can survive, the better your defenses are going to be, and the more you're going to be able to take. So my view on debuff is debuff the Siege and debuff the Archer as high as you can. Allows your Siege and your Cav to survive longer, and it's harder to be run through if that's the case. Baldwin still holds true, is a good even debuff across the board. His HP debuff doesn't really jump out at you as super great, but he does debuff Archer and Siege attack at a fairly high level. And he's kind of even across the board, 45 on the HP for range and Siege. So with that being said, it's not a great HP debuff, but it's a good HP debuff. So with that being said, like Baldwin is one that like a lot of people have a lot of copies of. And he's not as difficult to get as a lot of the others. So Jan, let's look at Jan. I mainly focused on the siege and the mounted. He's got some other stuff, I believe, in his ascension. But for this exercise, I mainly focused on the siege and the mounted, because that's his highest mounted attack, 100. I'm not 100% sure if these numbers are correct, because I didn't take in account the ones that debuff everywhere. HP 10, defense 10 on the siege. No attack debuff, and 90 on the HP, 90 on the defense. But let's just go in and make sure that that's correct. Yeah, so I feel like that's spot on. Not counting this 10% here. But yeah, Jan is kind of one-dimensional. It's just mounted attack, and it's just siege, HP, and defense. But fully start out, the HP and the defense is 90 on each, so that's solid. Ziska, and a lot of people are going to be surprised with this one. Ziska, why am I not huge on him? He is really, really good against Archer. So if you can red star him all the way out, and you really need to make up the ground on the Archer, basically he brings buffs in all areas, but Archer's super heavy, and Archer is what he's meant to debuff, and he cuts the attack at 120, HP at 100, and defense at 100. Siege is really underwhelming. It's 30 attack, 35 HP, 45 defense. So with that being said, you're probably better off with Baldwin over Ziska if you wanted to buff both. If you wanted to buff Archer heavy, yeah, he will do that for you. But if you put it into perspective, you're probably better with Simone, and we will get to him at some point. Shortly here. I'm just going to talk about Nordic real quick. And Ziska, he brings debuffs in all areas, but his strength is Archer. So I kind of look at him as a beefed up, Jackson or Sanute from the early days. A souped up Baldwin, except weaker against the siege, and significantly weaker. Baldwin cuts 40% more siege attack than Ziska does, and Baldwin outdoes him on the HP. So if you're trying to get to that 2,000 siege HP debuff, I would you're gonna need everything you can get. So I would. For me, Ziska is a Archer debuff general, and he is a really good one. But for me, that's where he's at. Nordic, pretty even across the board. These numbers aren't 100% correct because I went off my general, and his fourth spec is not done. So, but he's heavy. Well, he's kind of even. He does give 45% siege HP debuff. He cuts Archer attack by... The Archer numbers are attack, HP, defense, 45, 45, 80. So at 45, his HP is even with Baldwin, but again, he doesn't debuff near the siege attack that Baldwin does, or the Archer attack debuff that Baldwin does. So for me, Nordic's off the list. Like, for me, that's a no-brainer. Now I'm coming up on Simone, and I do really, really like him. I like him more than I have before, because I've been looking at things, and I'm like, yeah, if you just do, if you don't red star him, and just run him as is, he cuts Archer and Siege by 75 on the attack. So that's 10% lower on the range than Baldwin, but you'll see here why I like him. It's 50 50 on the siege HP and 50 on the siege defense, which 50 is only 5% higher than Baldwin, but that is a completely maxed out Baldwin. So across the board, when we're talking siege, it's 75 on the attack, 50 HP, 50 defense. So with that being said, I believe him to be one of the best when we're talking stock. He'll also cut ground and mounted attack by 10. But his real advantage, in my opinion, is the siege debuff and the ranged. And again, Baldwin is a little better against the ranged, but the reason I have Simone as probably one of the best right out the gate with no red stars on him is because of how even he is. And we'll break it down by going to the last two generals I'm going to talk about are super elite. One of them I don't even have. So when we talk Zudai, I do have one red star on him. But I don't want to start over, so I think I'm just going to leave him as is. I've actually got two Zudai. And I'm thinking what I'm probably going to do is break one of these down, possibly. Unfortunately, he doesn't give you any more HP to buff till the last one. So, really, if I could add another red star to this one, I like that because it's range and siege HP -10. So that would be a good jump for me. But when we look at the numbers, so when he's done, Zudai gives you 70% archer debuff. And from what I've got written here, no HP and no defense debuff. And then on C, she does 70 attack, 40 HP, and 40 defense. And I feel like that is not counting the first red star. So let's just take a look. 40, yeah. So if you add one red star, then he's at 50. So these numbers would be a little different for me. I would say Zudai, after getting, you at least want one red star, I feel, on Zudai, if you're going to place him over Simone. So he does 70, 40, 40 on the siege, 70 attack, and then debuffs 40 HP and 40 defense. Mounted and ground, he just cuts 10% attack. It's a generic, the 10% attack debuff. And then on ground, he does cut HP and defense by 35. So, and that's not including this first. Come on, guys, I'm not buying right now. The first red star, the numbers that I have are not included in that. So it's gonna be better than what that is, but. I feel like he does bring some even debuffs if you can add the first red star at a minimum. The second red star I don't like. Third red star is good because it's attack debuff. Fourth is ground and mounted. And the fifth you get into the siege again. But I think for Zudai to be better than. Or as good as Simone, you're going to have at least one red star. And Montezuma, he's the newest. And a lot of people were touting him as like the best. And he is good, but not super, super great. So what I mean by that is when we're looking at it in comparison, and this is with no red stars. This is just a stock Montezuma, 90 on the archer. Let me click on him. Mainly just for entertainment purposes. So the video looks a little bit more finished. I'm going to discuss some other things like gear and other areas to improve your defense against these new K50 buffs. But let me go down to Montezuma. When I first looked at him, I was like, oh, he's the best, he's the best, he's the best. I have to have him, he's the best. So when we look at it, his numbers across the board, he is mainly a archer. He's really strong archer debuff with no red stars. He does cut HP and defense on archer and siege at a high level. The issue that I have with him is very low siege attack debuff, and if you're like me, you really need to, you do need that siege debuff, which if I got him, I may keep him and just substitute somewhere else. But I know for sure I'm taking off Ziska and Nordic, and I'm not sure what I do beyond that. But for sure I'm like replacing 2, probably with Simone, because that would give me 5. That would give me 20%. That would give me 20% extra debuff. So I'm probably going to have to do that. And that's just on the HP. I'll get massive debuff. So I get 45 if I combine the 2, and I'd get 150. So I'd go, my siege attack debuff would be, I'd add 100% to my siege attack debuff. So when we go through the numbers, ranged on Montezuma, he does 90, 65, 65, which is good. But there's others that are as good or right in the same realm. On the siege, he only cuts siege attack by 10. He cuts the HP and the defense by 65. And here's where the combos come into play, because like ideally you go with Jan to cut HP and defense, which is great, but he doesn't cut any of the attack. And that's where the issue is. And Montezuma doesn't cut any of the attack. So with that issue, with that whole thing, Simone with no red stars is 75 attack, 50 HP, 50 defense. So you lose 15% from Montezuma in comparison to Montezuma with having Simone. But you're cutting a lot more of the attack, and you're cutting... you're losing 15 on the HP and 15 on the defense. But I feel like you need to... The biggest key is let's cut the attack first, and then let's focus on the HP. So, yeah, I mean, if you want... the highest HP debuff is probably Jan. I'm not sure what Montezuma is fully done. We'll just take a look real quick. It's not like I could do it anyway, so it doesn't matter. So yeah, you only get another 10%. So really, if you're looking at him for cutting siege HP, there's no point of even starring Montezuma, because he's going to be good. He's good without it. Let's see what his 4th one is. I really haven't looked at him that closely, because I know I can't get him. So, enemy range troopers. So another 30. So, I mean, okay, so you put it at 95. Oh, no, I've already counted that in. Okay, so he's at 65. Yeah, it is what it is. So, yeah, with that being said, yeah, if you ask me if you're cutting Archer and Siege, I like Baldwin. Jan, use sparingly, because you remember you're giving up a lot of siege attack debuff by having him. Nordic and Ziska, my numbers are the max numbers, so like those 2 I'm for sure taking out. And I'll try to add some Simone and get one more copy of Zudai, and in that case then I can add another red star, and that'll give me at least another 10% siege HP. And Montezuma, if I get him, great. But you can go with having heavy Simone and heavy, 1 or 2 fully done Jan if you can. Baldwin still holds weight. He's good as a balance. But that's my take on it. And that's what you got to figure out. You're going to have to go in, you're going to have to look at reports, and you're like, where do I need help? Where am I struggling? What do I need to cut? Do I need to cut attack, HP? Because, like, once you're cutting the attack, the siege and the archer attack in half, then it's time to focus on the HP and see where you can add that. But this one was just on sub-generals, just to cover sub-generals, and that, you know, Montezuma, he's good, but he's good without any red stars. Simone is good, and he's good without any red stars. Zudai is good. For my money, I'd like to see Zudai with at least one red star, and he would be really solid for you. But this was the first in a series of videos on defending against the new K50 buffs. So I will definitely have a few more to do this evening yet. But if you like the video, like the content, I hope it helps you. Like, subscribe, tell your friends. And I'm kind of setting a goal for 1,000 subscribers would be cool. But anyway, with that being said, I'm going to call this a video.